which was supported, as I'm sure many of you know, for 20 years by DARPA, and then another 10 years by the National Science Foundation, 30 years before the Wall Street Journal discovered it as a triumph of market capitalism. We basically have created the modern world, what some people call the American century, which started with World War II and continued after World War II, with massive government investment in technologies that have not only been valuable militarily, most of it was rationalized through military and space expenditure, which is a psychological problem we can get into. But the point is that that's where our economic growth has come from. It hasn't come from the unfettered free market, and there are reasons for that having to do with physics. And let me stop there.
So Revis, I want to hear Revis respond, because I see he's been taking notes, and I want to hear, what Marty's saying is, if we look at the successes we've had, not always in energy, but in other places, it hasn't come from, it's come, from government investment. What do you say to that?
Well, I'm going to try to resist the same thing Marty was referring to, but launching into, my riff on all this. Let me just answer that question, and I think it ties to the very last part of what Marty was saying. Yeah, I think innovation, the other misconception about innovation, besides the one Marty's talking about, that it's always related to price signals, is the idea that, it's the comic strip with a light bulb over the head of somebody in a patent office somewhere. A lot of innovation is people taking building blocks of science and technology and combining them in unanticipated ways to produce new ideas, new levels of efficiency, new levels of performance, lower levels of cost, new levels of reliability, things that last a lot longer, require a lot less maintenance. All of those things are reasons why technologies last a long time and have impact. So I think what often happens is that when you have these massive investments by governments in areas, sometimes with objectives that are very different than how those technologies play out, they create the building blocks. So my thinking is the government creates the building blocks, and then you let different stages of the applied research, university system, and the private sector take those building blocks and do things with them. And of course, you can make that easy, you can make that hard by creating structures which facilitate research, facilitate development, and demonstration of technologies. So you can enhance the speed with which those building blocks are assembled in different ways and anticipated ways.
Right. Now I want to get Kelly involved in this, because I'm hearing now a hardcore academic from literally NYU in the Village, kind of agreeing with Revis James from industry that price signals are not necessarily the driver of technological development. And yet, we're talking about setting up a cap and trade system here in the United States and then internationally to drive innovation. Is that the right way to think about this, Kelly?
Well, I think that I wanted to make two sort of connected points, and then I'll answer your question. The first is that I think your initial question about R versus D, research versus development, and of course, I agree with what everybody said, that it's both. And the reason why it's both is that we need to be improving our menu of options for the future in a more fundamental way, with our basic energy sciences and inventions. And then we need to be reducing costs for the technologies that exist now. And the government has different roles in both of those domains. And the second point I wanted to make is that I think what we have lacked in terms of government policy is a real coordinated strategy through the whole innovation chain. So, we've tended to have isolated R&D policy, demonstration policy, and we don't even really think about it in terms of deployment policy, but how we get these technologies into the marketplace. So one would be a price signal, a carbon tax or cap and trade, and that would serve as a deployment policy in terms of motivating both the invention of technologies, but pushing those technologies